So ladies and gentlemen of the DCU, welcome to my Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 2 recap, review, and breakdown. Now today's episode dives into the aftermath of the crazy ending of last week's episode with, the death of the other dimension's Peacemaker. We have Argus cracking down on a dimensional portal, which introduces us to Tim Meadows' Langston Fleury. And don't get me started on that Eagly scene a little bit later on. So without wasting any more time, ladies and gentlemen, if you are brand new here and you like what you see, you like Peacemaker, you like DC, you're absolutely in the right place. Consider subscribing. And if you go on to enjoy the episode coverage here in the video, I'd really appreciate it if you took 2 seconds of your time to leave a like rating. And also, don't forget to leave your thoughts and theories in the comments below about this episode, what's coming up in next week's episode. But let's get into this. So in episode 2, we pick up 8 months ago with a scene that basically contextualizes how we got to where they're at in present day for Rick Flag Sr. and Argus going after Peacemaker. We see Economos, or should I say Econogoat, showing Rick Flag Sr. around the Argus offices, which is exactly when he happens to be on TV, where the host is talking about how Amanda Waller will step aside as the president has made Rick Flag the acting director of Argus. Flag even mentions how the post wasn't exactly his first choice, but the president didn't have much other options, which, I think given the events of things that we know about so far, I do think it makes sense, because what we know already is that Rick Flag Sr. has had a ton of experience in the DCU. In addition to just, his many years of service, we saw him lead the Creature Commandos during the Pokolistan mission, which, go check out Creature Commandos if you haven't already. He's in that a lot. So, with Waller facing congressional hearings, I think it makes sense to appoint this position to Flag, especially also when you consider his overall experience in the metahuman side of the DCU just being a crucial factor, because we also, don't forget, as we talked about in last week's breakdown, things do seem to be flaring up more and more on that front, causing a very big concern for the government and the public with the whole metahumans force urgent response and reflections news report that we saw, just detailing how it's rapidly becoming an existential threat. So yeah, I think Flag is well equipped for this. And we even get a bit of what I guess is a reference to Economos' time with Rick Flag during the events of Creature Commandos by calling him an old pal. But to get to it here, Flag immediately wants to see a full report on his son's death, as he couldn't access them previously due to them being classified. And you can just see how jittery this makes Economos given his connection with Peacemaker in this moment, with him even saying how that day was complicated and any actions were technically taken under the order of Amanda Waller, and that is very true. I know this is a very messy situation, which is why I appreciate this story being, told in the show, and Flag is really gung-ho about it. And as we see him read the file, we get flashes back to the scene from the Suicide Squad, where, as you can see, threads of the old DCEU are canon, and we can see Peacemaker killing Rick Flag over the hard drive that contained evidence. Don't forget, it contained evidence of the government funding experiments such as Project Starfish. And as we know, Peacemaker really didn't want to kill him, which is why he beats himself up so much about this, but he was under orders from Waller to stop that from getting out. And again, as a part of his kind of directive in life, as a part of being Peacemaker, it is peace at any costs. So learning the gruesome details of his son's last moments, I guess you could say he's very pissed, to say the least, and he immediately gets Sacha Bordeaux to put surveillance on Christopher Smith 24/7. And then we're back with Peacemaker, who just killed the other Peacemaker from the other dimension, which lands him in a very sticky situation as he works to try and hide the body, but time and time again, it just kind of keeps falling out of the storage unit. And what happens next was another theory of mine that turned out to be true, because in those trailers for season 2, we saw Vigilante come over with a bunch of cleaning supplies. And to me at the time, it kind of looks like, fairly obvious cleanup up. And that is exactly what happened here. He calls Vigilante up on his Lord Tech phone, asking if he has any of those bone saws left around. And while he waits for him to come over, he's frantically showering and scrubs off all of that blood. He's pretty upset about it as well because, as I mentioned, I'm pretty sure the way things went down with the other Peacemaker was the last thing that Chris wanted to happen. And I do just want to give props to John Cena here as well. I know a lot of people pointed it out just from episode 1 with his interactions with the other dimensions, father, Augie, and his brother Keith, and how he burst into tears after they left the room. And here, I like how the show, just like season 1, to be honest, because I really feel like John Cena showed his acting chops in season 1, but like in this season, it's allowing even more opportunity, given the theme of everything, given the reason why he's getting this conviction to go over to the other dimension. It just really does allow, despite how vulgar comedic, like raunchy comedic Peacemaker can be, it still has these really kind of introspective moments that does require, someone with quite a bit of talent, and that is John Cena here, to put you in the perspective of that character. And we all know that Peacemaker Christopher Smith is not having an easy time of things right now. And this is just episode 2. Now, as for Adebayo's personal story this episode, this is where we get to see things from Kia's side, where she accuses Adebayo of changing every single aspect of their relationship, like every plan, overnight. Now, apparently they were supposed to be going back to Gotham for just Adebayo to start up this, spy business of hers, which, isn't really earning her any money, as she talks to Economos about later on. So, all while Adebayo views it as chasing her dreams, for Kia, yeah, it's not so much that when, it can kind of be seen as leeching off of someone else's reality, like and putting their whole life on hold. Now, I don't know where exactly things are going to go for Adebayo by the very end of this season, but, I guess her arc this season with Kia will be realizing, in a similar way, I suppose, with the whole grass is greener thing with Peacemaker, we'll be realizing what's truly, truly important to her. While, she's pursuing her dreams, she might just be letting another, maybe dream, you could say, slip away. But then again, if she gets back with Kia, all happy-go-lucky, would that mean moving away back to Gotham? And I want to entertain that for a brief moment here because I assume that we're going to get a Peacemaker Season 3 one day. And I can't imagine Leota Adebayo, Danielle Brooks not being in it. But then again, I guess future seasons of Peacemaker don't always have to take place in Evergreen. Now, as for Harcourt, man, she's still a mess. She's in the store, and another woman, because of how beat up she is from that bar scene in episode 1, thinks she's kind of being abused because of her bruises. Now, Harcourt has no time for this, and even on her way out, she sees this hiring sign for the store, and she's borderline tempted because, to be honest, yeah, she can't keep not making any money for that much longer. And then up next, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we meet the brilliant Tim Meadows as Langston Fleury. Now, all while we've had Economos chilling in the van doing surveillance, he arrives to more or less babysit Economos. You just gotta love how Economos gets baited out and points the pistol at him. Still in the holster. Now, with the introduction of Fleury, also comes the introduction of more, I guess you could say, James Gunn humor here. Now, I know Peacemaker's had a particular crowd in mind, for enjoying its form of entertainment, you could say, as I've said before. If you've seen Peacemaker Season 1 and you enjoy the humor, then you're going to enjoy Season 2. The show is very unapologetically, as I said, like vulgar, raunchy, comedic, and that's what you sign up for when you watch this show. So I have to admit, I spoke about this on a live stream recently, but I was kind of surprised to see people watch episode 1 and be like, oh my God, what the heck was that? When it came to the things that happened in that episode, because, I could name a few things in Season 1, even episode 1 of Season 1, where things got very much so kind of like that. But I don't know. That aside, I just say all of this because Fleury is basically what I'd call one of the vessels for this season's comedy. You know, he's an absolute jackass, as you can tell, especially to Economos, or as he calls him, Ginger Cool. But hey, you know, he makes me laugh quite a bit, and obviously that is the intention. There's stupid humor, and sometimes stupid humor is exactly that, stupid things to be stupidly enjoyed. And that is a lot of Peacemaker, especially with his bloody bird blindness, where he's dead serious about the condition being a thing. And then just his general interactions with everyone. Like, he seems to kind of piss off quite a few people, even Sacha Bordeaux, with how he can't help but kind of add some kind of joke into a line he's going to say. But the dynamic between Economos and Fleury was just, I would say, one of the highlights of this episode for me, because Economos is just almost so disturbed by this guy. At the same time, he just can't stand him. I suppose those two are kind of the same thing. But this is where we have a few things going on at once. So we have Peacemaker waking up and making some coffee with a house full of nakey-wakey people from the night before. Adebayo turns up, and, you know, we can't forget that Economos warned her towards the end of the previous episode about what Argus is doing and how they picked up that anomaly on the marital radar. So Peacemaker begins to explain the picture that Economos got of him standing in the entryway of the QUC, and confirms that it is indeed a dimensional portal that leads to, as he says it, 99 other universes. And again, that's actually pretty crazy to me that, hey, yeah, already in the DCU, we're exploring a story that is technically already going into the multiverse in a way. And I say that because I've always said in the past couple of years that I couldn't imagine the DCU doing the whole multiverse thing, so to speak, right away. You know, and that was always with regards to, you know, Ultraman, and people actually speculating, could we get Ultraman from the Crime Syndicate? And I was like, I really don't think so. But technically, even though we didn't get that, hey, we're still kind of doing 99 other universes in the QUC. So while I don't really label this like a fully fledged multiverse kind of story like what we've seen in the past several years across different franchises, it still most certainly qualifies at the same time. I also just want to know why the QUC connects to like only 99 other universes. Like, why those 99? Why not an infinite amount of universes? Were there only 99 doorways formed, so explored and then constructed to then link to them in the QUC, and then it just stopped there? You know, I kind of realize that I'm overthinking it now, but it's just, you know, stuff like this is really interesting. At least I find it really interesting to consider. This is when Adebayo informs Peacemaker that he's being monitored by none other than Rick Flag Sr., and he tells him everything, like he's the head of Argus now and the whole shtick, and she wants him to not use the portal anymore because, A, they know whenever he does, and not only that, they'll kind of treat it like he's got a nuke and use it as an excuse to send him back to prison. And for me, you know, even though Peacemaker hasn't inherently done anything wrong there with the QUC, it still does kind of make sense in a way for Flag to do something like that, just considering how the Luthor incident, as they call it, in Metropolis involved a dimensional rift. Anyway, though, this is when the good old Vigilante arrives and gets very offended when he wasn't invited to the party, as being involved in those activities could mean an opportunity to bond with his best friend. And, you know, despite Vigilante being a complete sociopath and demonstrating that in many ways, if there's one thing he values, as we've seen from his calls with Economos constantly, how much he rates Peacemaker, it's that he values friendship. So he may be kind of creepy when it comes to like killing people and whatnot, and just isn't affected in the same way that other people are. But I think that's what makes him a very, very unique character that we find very entertaining. So they head to the QC, which, you know, despite the warning about Argus, leads to the anomaly flashing on the Argus screen once again, which then, you know, leads to Bordeaux wanting to know if Economos is going to that meetup later on. And when that happens, they plan to scope the house out for exactly what is going on in there. In between this, we get Vigilante being filled in on the QUC. When we see the other Peacemaker, my God, does his face look, yeah, I'd say he's sufficiently croaked at that point. And of course, this is when we get a montage of that body being cut up. And all while this is a very gruesome task for Peacemaker to do, you just kind of have Vigilante there, as kind of what we were just getting into, acting like this is just the picture-perfect quality time with his best friend. And truly, that is why he's so happy. Not about anything else. It's not about cutting up the body. It's just that he gets to do this with his best friend, having a bit of a sweep in the QUC, cleaning up and doing a bit of a dance. And as they're burning the body, we have that alien once again come out to do what I assume is his daily alien rodent burn, and we have Peacemaker basically telling him to feck off because the amount of times he said hi to him, for him never to say hi back, he just can't take it anymore. For me, I just want to find out why this freaking alien is frying these alien rodents every day. Like, imagine if the reason was because of the whole multiverse hinges on that task being upheld. So when Peacemaker gets back to his room, we found out when they were burning the suit for the other Peacemaker that his phone dropped out. So he takes this opportunity to look through the photo library. And of course, you know, he sees all of these really nice moments with the other universe's Harcourt, Amelia Harcourt. And man, like the longing in Peacemaker's face to have that life, every single thing at this point is just driving him to want to go and live in that other world. We then get a bit of a montage of the Argus agents gearing up for the raid on Peacemaker's house, led by Langston Fleury, of course, where at first he wants everyone to wait before storming in, because Peacemaker, yeah, I kind of get it, you know, could come back for a gift that he might have brought to the get-together with friends, which is when they all debate what a housewarming gift is. And so this is when we cut to the 11th Street Kids get together, which is hosted on the roof of Harcourt's apartment building. You know, it just feels good to see everyone, you know, back together, happily back together, with them even toasting to how no one will ever break them apart. And we then cut to Fleury's plan of action as they get ready to go into Peacemaker's house, giving them all these ridiculous names to the Argus agents. And so they go in, and oh man, as we come to see, they weren't remotely ready for what was waiting for them. So, you know, you need a guard dog? No, man, get a guard eagle. And I have to say, like, this was hilarious as it was brutal. And I loved it. Like, Eagly is such a badass. So for Gunn to just give him his own fight scenes this season, where he literally takes down a whole band of Argus agents, that is, for me, again, with what this show is, the kind of nuts Peacemaker content that I want to see. You know, the way he'd swoop in felt like a freaking horror movie where the main characters are trying to evade some kind of pouncing demon. And then, you know, just after seeing the result of all of his efficient takedowns, we get that needle drop, which just gives us this badass Eagly walk, where we also hear, shortly afterwards, that Fleury thought that he was attacked by a duck. Now, all this leads to a montage of the 11th Street Kids partying away at Harcourt's. You gotta love Vigilante's dance moves and just how wasted Economos and Adebayo were getting. Now, things got to that moment between Harcourt and Chris where he just tries to connect with her again and just rekindle that blatant something there that they have between them, despite how much she tries to resist it or say that there isn't anything. And so he leans into how it's clear that she's going out looking to get into fights, and you know, quite frankly, he's worried about her. And Harcourt, being the way she is at the moment, like, really pushes him away. So obviously from where Harcourt is at, she just doesn't want to come to terms with how she is mentally dealing with things, let alone let other people see that vulnerability to her. And you can tell that her journey this season is just going to be about being a bit more open with that rather than pushing others away, in addition to obviously also navigating what the heck she's going to do from here on out, just given that she can't work in any intelligence agencies in America. And I'm really intrigued to see, like, there's quite a few destinations for these characters where it feels like, you know, at the end of the season, where are they going to go in season 3? I know that's incredibly early to tell, but it just feels like, okay, like, where are these characters going to go? Because Harcourt can't keep on not earning money. Adebayo's not making any money with a spy business. And, you know, if she ends up getting back with Kia, they got to move away. As for Economos, I suppose Economos is one of the few that I'm kind of, yeah, he'll probably keep working at Argus despite him also detailing how he really doesn't enjoy the job this episode. So maybe he's going to do something for himself by the finale of this season, where he tries something different. But anyway, back on track here. After his interaction with Harcourt, Chris, just like last episode, decides to numb his pain and gets really, really wasted. We then, at this point, I guess we're at the end of the episode where he returns home, too drunk, I guess you could say, to notice the chaos that ensued between Eagly and the Argus agents. And this is where he remembers the other Peacemaker's phone and accesses it once again and goes to text the other dimension's Amelia Harcourt. Except that this text doesn't send because, after all, he's not in the same universe. So, of course, that gives him the temptation of once again going back into the QUC, and he does just that and stumbles through to the other Peacemaker's world. And he actually overhears Augie talking to Keith, who's been searching for the other Peacemaker. They're even wondering what the blood in the library was from, suggesting maybe it's from his pills, so kind of insinuating that the other Peacemaker has some kind of pill abuse kind of thing. But as we know, it's from the Peacemaker versus Peacemaker battle at the end of episode 1. Now, this is where Amelia Harcourt from this other dimension responds with a hey and a broken heart emoji. And oh my, this certainly gets Chris thinking about pursuing this life, as after all, it could give him everything he wants. So I would say this is truly like the kicking off point from here on out for where the season's going to go with this other dimension side of things. So, when it comes to this episode, like overall, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that I really enjoyed this episode, like obviously picking up in the aftermath of the other Peacemaker's death and, what came with clearing that up with the body with Vigilante and how that was entertaining, the 11th Street kids reconnecting now. Like, there's a lot of, there's so much chemistry there, and after watching season 1, and if you're a fan of these characters, all of that is very, like, good content for us to see. And then you just had the Argus storyline being pushed forward a little bit more with them taking the next step in investigating the dimensional anomaly. And of course, we can't forget about the badass Eagly action. But what I will say is, all while I love a weekly release, and I am very biased with that because I get to do a video every week, and all while, like, sure, things moved along this episode, Episode 2 felt like more of a bridge between Episode 1's season setup and that of where we're going to go over here next in Episode 3, where it kind of looks like things move along a bit more, just especially given that Peacemaker is now kind of assuming the life of the other Peacemaker that is now dead. So all of that is to say that it does make me wonder if they should have dropped the first 2 episodes at once, so fans would have felt kind of dosed up enough to go forward into, the bigger things that seem to be unfolding. I think I also mainly say this because I saw some people comment that all while they enjoyed episode 1, and they don't have anything, again, like fundamentally against it, they also said there was still a sense of maybe being underwhelmed. Now, you could just say perhaps that's a result of like super high expectations or something, and not necessarily a inherent criticism of episode 1 itself. And maybe you didn't feel that way, and if you didn't, fair enough. But the point I think I'm trying to make is that some people did, and that's quite a few people, and I can kind of get where they're coming from if I'm trying to be as objective as I can here. Because from the comments that I read, they weren't from a place of like negativity for negativity's sake or anything, but I think it was about what I'm getting into here with how maybe if these first 2 episodes were dropped at once, getting to that final scene of Peacemaker assuming the role of the other Peacemaker's life and texting Harcourt with a double episode drop, I feel like those same people who left those comments would have felt more content waiting that first week to get episode 3. But now I wonder if after seeing episode 1, being like, okay, maybe I wish a bit more, I don't know, happened or something, and then they wait a week and they get to episode 2, and this kind of just continues that pacing of episode 1. I wonder if they're going to feel underwhelmed again. I don't know. Like, it's something to think about, I guess. For me, it's kind of neither here nor there because I personally enjoy the ride. I love weekly releases, and I obviously, this is the kicker, I guess, I obviously got to see these 2 episodes back to back. So it's not like I saw it the same way some other, well, lots of you guys are seeing it right now. But I think that more or less wraps up everything I've got to say about Season 2, Episode 2, ladies and gentlemen. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on the things that I said. Do you have any theories? But ladies and gentlemen, if you like this video and you are still here right now, I'd greatly appreciate if you left a like rating to just help me in the algorithm. Consider subscribing, especially if you're brand new here. I'm sure you're going to enjoy the other content that we do on the channel. But until next time, I'm going to love you and leave you. So thank you again so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. And I'll see you fellow 11th Street kids in the next video. Goodbye.